Um, okay, to not waste everybody's precious morning time, probably let me begin the webinar by introducing ourselves. So again, good morning. Thank you for joining us today. So today's webinar is titled as Go Beyond Citation, AI tool that reveals different types of citations. This webinar is brought to you by IES Research, a team that provides research publication with an engaging voice through the adaptation of the IES storyboard of Big Why, Why, and What. I think most of you are quite familiar with who we are and probably has joined many of our webinars. My name is Iris Xu, and I'm your host for the day. So today we have 3 presenters with us to share how Cite, an AI tool that identify the types of citation, can be used from the point of view of researchers, librarians, and for research outreach. So before we officially begin the session, let me remind you that any question, you can feel free to use the Q&A toolbar, Q&A option at the middle of the Zoom toolbar. And of course, you're welcome to use the chat box as well. So as a reminder, the webinar will be recorded and shared with you later. Now, our first speaker is Dominic Rosati. He is the research scientist and software developer of Cite. Welcome, Dominic.
Hello, thank you. Good morning.
And good evening to you. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the best thing to get started is to do a little bit of introduction of myself and also mention that since it's the evening for me, if you have questions, particularly for my presentation, if you could ask them during or towards the end, I'll take a few questions just in case I have to go because it's getting later in the day here. So right. I'm going to share my screen and then
please do.
Get started.
Dominic is 12 hours, but I mean,
yeah, I'm in the past. I'm your yesterday.
Okay, over to you.
So I think you can.
We can see the screen. We can see the agenda now.
It's the right there we go. Okay, excellent. Okay, so a little bit about me, and I'll try to be cognizant of any Q&A comes up, but the panel sort of disappears on me. But a little bit about me and what this presentation is going to be about. So I'm Dominic Rosati. My background actually is in applications of natural language processing to scientific texts. And that's where a lot of my work on Cite is. So a lot of the things that I do are geared towards building sort of the infrastructure of how we can understand scientific text and extract bits of it, like the context for citations and classify them and so on. But today, the presentation I'll give is kind of an overview of what Cite is and how it's built a little bit, and particularly what the core use cases is, or what the core things that researchers tend to use Cite for, and why Cite is kind of an interesting product. And a little kind of word of warning, your disciplines, are all going to be different. And so this presentation kind of goes through an exercise, and it's going to be in natural language processing, my background. So if you have any like clarification questions based on sort of like the things that I'm going through, let me know, but it shouldn't matter. That's just kind of the publications that I'll be bringing up and so on. But the core use cases should be familiar. So I'm going to talk about first what in-text citations are, as a way of talking about what we mean by types of citations. And then I'll go into just a walkthrough of our core search and discovery tools, as well as our report tools to show you how you can use Cite for determining the quality of research. And then at the end, I'll maybe give a highlight of our other tools, because we do have quite a lot that we offer. But I'll try to stick with looking at any direct questions that anyone has. So this is kind of where we like to get started with showing off what Cite is good for. It's good for basically the whole cycle of helping you do research, from discovery to writing to evaluation. And that means a bunch of different things. Discovery, typically for a researcher, is finding publications, and where we come in, it's how do we know if a publication is of high quality? What are people saying about the publication? For writing, it's typically while you're writing, what should you be citing? How do you know if you're missing a citation? How do you understand the critical information about a citation you're using? How can you sort of find more things to write about? And then finally, for evaluation, which I probably won't get to, but I think some of the webinars might, other sessions rather, might get towards Cite for sort of looking at research outputs and so on. We do have some tools for that. And these ones I highlighted in terms of things that are useful for researchers themselves rather than librarians or bibliometricians. And they're like, we have a reference check product, so you can check the quality of your references, and we have a browser extension so you can see. And I'll show the quality of a paper, and I'll show you that. So to get started, I like to kind of look at what motivates us to work on Cite, and what's the current landscape of scholarly discovery and research, and why there's a problem with just using citations or just using sort of your traditional discovery tools. So typically, when you're looking at literature, you will, you'll have a paper in mind you want to use and look at its citations, or you'll be trying to look for some topic, and you'll find a publication, and you want to evaluate whether or not this is a good quality publication. And there's typical things that are obvious and everyone does, like looking at the journal. So this is the Lancet, which is a prestigious journal, and the number of citations, or as sort of a proxy for what impact that's had in the scholarly literature. But the problem with that is that you don't really know what those citations are saying about this paper. And so this particular publication is kind of infamous because it's actually a heavily disputed publication. And this paper's famously been withdrawn many times, retracted many times. And time and time again, many of its citations actually are disputes of the findings of this paper. So that number of 1,627 citations, it's not it's not a good indicator of quality for this particular paper. Similarly, again, we have a paper, and it might have a relatively low citation count, but you're not sure what those citations say, and some of those citations might be independent supporting citations. And so here's an example from our system of Citation, and I'll get more into the structure of what these are, but what this is text from a paper. So this is the first fMRI study, yada yada, is text from this implicit structured sequence learning paper from Folia and Peterson, 2014. And this snippet is talking about this paper, what artificial grammar learning reveals about neurobiology of syntax. And so what we're looking at in Cite, and when we talk about the citation context or the citation classification, is we're looking at what's been said about a publication. So that's really the core. Everything I'm going to be talking about is really along the lines of these citation statements, what other authors are talking about a paper. And so getting back to what I was saying, it's important not only to understand the number of citations and other proxies for quality, but really to understand what's been said about a paper. And this paper has been, like the other one, which has been, disputed many times and debunked, this one's been supported many times. And that's not something you can get in any other platform or literature discovery product just by looking at citations. And the old way of doing this, which many of you are probably trained to do, is you take a paper and you have somewhere where you can find all of the citations, like Google Scholar or Scopus of Web of Science and so on, and to go and find those citations, to download, like first to find those citations, so using citation tool like I mentioned, then to download and find access to each paper, which some papers you might not be able to have access to, and then to find all of the mentions, and then to read all of them. And that is quite a lot of time that you have to take to do that in order to find these supporting and contrasting citations. And what we've found with Cite is that most citations are actually mentioning citations, which means that a citation is just used to support an argument, or it's a mention of methodology or something like that. And they're not too interesting citations. So if you're looking through a paper with an average of 1,000 citations, opening up 1,000 papers and so on, that's a lot of work just to find maybe the 4 or 5 very critical citations. And so what Cite lets you do is read and search all these in-text citations, all these citation statements in one place, without having to worry about whether you have access to them, which ones are relevant, and so on. You can read and search them all in one place. And what we say is that you can see everything that's been said about a publication. And really that's our mission at Cite, is to show you what everything that's been said in scholarly literature about a publication. We don't capture gray literature or social media mentions. Altmetrics and some other tools do that, but we try to do the mentions within scholarly literature. And like I said, saves hours of time if any of you have ever done something like this, looking comprehensively at each citation. And so I'm going to go over a little bit of what that looks like in Cite, and then I'll switch over to practical use case of using Cite, just so you can get an idea of how our researchers typically use Cite to power their research and look at literature. So the core products that we offer are, first is the Cite reports. And what the Cite reports are is what I'm showing you here. You can search for any publication, and you can see that what we have is these citation statements that are talking about this paper. So all of these supported, contrasted, mentioning, and so on, all of these cited by publications in this list here, they're all statements from these papers about this target paper. So all of these that appear below are about association between amygdala hyperactivity and so on. And it's what other authors are saying. So you can see there's 328 citation statements, and these are all things you can read to find out what people have said about this paper. And that's kind of your entryway into using Cite for understanding the quality of a paper. Because if you can understand how a paper has been received by other scholars, then you can start to get an idea of what the critical discussions going on about it, whether it's been independently replicated or reproduced, whether it's been debunked, and so on. And that's really what we try to surface to researchers. The other product that we have that helps with this is our citation statement search. So instead of just having to, oops, sorry, my, for whatever reason, I can't go back. I'm trying to, oh, here we go, there we go, that's why. Where was I? Oh yeah, so instead of having to find a particular paper and in order to see all the citations about it, you can also search, you can also search the citation statements themselves. And so you can search directly our entire database of citations, which is over 950 million citation statements. And you can search for topics, ways things have been cited, data sets, methods, and so on. And that way you can search across papers to understand, how particular things have been cited. And I'll show you the power of that and why researchers are using that in a second. We also have an extension that's freely available to use that people can download, and it shows wherever you're reading literature online, a little badge that shows the number of citations, the number of supporting mentions, the number of mentions, so mentioning citation statements, and the number of contrasting. And so that lets you, wherever you're reading online, it helps you decide whether or not you want to read the literature, or you can click the badge and see what's being said about this publication. And we have native integration of these badges in some places like Wiley, and Google Scholar. Our extension puts these badges on Google Scholar, and we have a lot of places, Archive, Royal Society, and a lot of these scholarly databases and tools where our badge is natively integrated. And finally, a lot of people come to Cite and their first experience is with our search. And this is your typical metadata search, where you can search for publications. But the power of our search is it allows you to filter things by supporting, mentioning, and contrasting citations. And those are the citation types. So how does Cite work? Well, what we do in order to get all of that citation context information, to link it, to classify them, is we work with publishers, journals, and other open sources to extract, index, and classify citations. And so we have good relationships with publishers where we have indexing agreements where we index their content, and they allow us to show the content so that people don't need to purchase these publications in order to read what's being said about a publication. We have over 1.5 billion citations in the traditional sense of citation. So that means, a one-to-one link, whether one author cited it or whether one publication cited another. And we are the largest database. Oh yeah, I should update this. We're now over 950 million citation statements, and we've extracted and analyzed over 27 million full texts, and we're ingesting over 100,000 full text per day. We have extensive coverage in most disciplines, and just to mention, because a lot of people, once they start to really become practiced with Cite, they sort of wonder about our disciplinary coverage. Really, our disciplinary coverage is subject to the indexing agreements that we sign with publishers. So it depends on which publishers we have a relationship and which publishers we have indexed with. And so if there's anything missing, you can let us know, and we can work on forming a relationship with a publisher in your field. And we're very active in trying to get as comprehensive coverage as possible. And so in terms of technically how it works is we do use a lot of machine learning to extract, and here's a visualization of how we extract references. And so what we do is we extract references from a publication and the sentences surrounding a reference, and that becomes the in-text citation or the citation statement. Then, after we've extracted and linked those scholarly publications, we classify those citations based on a deep learning model that classifies whether a citation statement is supporting, contrasting, or mentioning. And I'll talk about what those means. I'll just mention, and we have a paper that talks about comprehensively what our method is and the way we use that. Actually, it's published in Quantitative Science Studies, so I should update that link. But the preprints there in that link. And so what we specifically mean by citation classifications, the types of classifications, is we mean that in the supporting case, that the citation statement brings independent evidence and argumentation to support the author. the publication that it's citing. It doesn't mean that the author or the publication that's being cited is used as support for the paper's argument. And so our supporting definition is quite strict in that respect. Contrasting similarly means that there is a difference of a result being presented, or a failure of replication, or something of that nature. It's not merely sort of a difference of opinion. And mentioning is sort of the other type of classification, which is your sort of classification, where you're referencing some method, or you're referencing just something for background information. And so I'm going to go over the use cases of cite in a way that we find is typical of users. And this is going to comprehensively touch on our citation statement search and reports. And the other things that I mentioned, such as our publication search or badges, I won't touch on as much. And then finally, at the end, I'll show a little bit more of what our other products are, but this is really the core use case that researchers find cite useful for. So I'm going to go over the case study of finding a citation. So when you are writing a manuscript or doing initial research and discovery, oftentimes you might have a claim or a hypothesis or something you're writing, and you need to find a citation for it. You need to find a citation for it in order to justify something you're writing, or you're just looking for a citation for something to read to understand kind of more nuanced or critical information about the claim that's being made. So here's an example. And this is just, I'm just going to kind of use an example of me writing a paper. So I know that somewhere, and this happens for a lot of scholars, somewhere I read that these BERT models, it's a machine learning architecture, has been shown to encode semantic information at higher layers, while syntactic information is encoded at lower levels. And so that's kind of a claim. And as a researcher, I heard that somewhere, or I read that somewhere, and it's part of my knowledge, but I don't necessarily remember where, or it's kind of just like a fact of the discipline or something like that. But when I'm writing, or when I'm trying to be robust about this and see where this claim comes from, I should cite this or know where it comes from. And so this is kind of your first entryway into using cite. You can use our citation statement search to put that claim, search that claim in our citation statement search, and you'll see how other people have cited, or how other people have talked about that particular claim. And so what you can do is you can read these search results for the, yeah, there we go. You can read these search results for the claim that I'm making here, and you can see, and here I've highlighted Tenney et al. 2019. You can see that Tenney et al. 2019 finds that BERT encodes local syntactic information at lower levels, global syntactic information at higher levels. This is probably where I read this claim first. In fact, that is where it is, where I found it first. And so what I can do is I can, like this author has similarly supported their claim by citing that, I can also cite this paper in order to show the same thing. And here's just another view of that. And so what I can do is I can use that as a citation to support, or use that as that reference to support the claim that I've made here. So now I've found a citation for what I've written. But many of you probably, and hopefully, have kind of a critical attitude towards this, where you might be thinking, well, how do I know if it's an appropriate citation? I myself have read this paper, so I just remembered, oh yeah, that's where that was discovered. But if you were just doing this and you were unsure of a paper, you probably shouldn't just take a sentence, put in our citation statement search, and use the first thing you see as a citation, what you can do in order to know if it's an appropriate citation is you can click on, so here, you can click on that paper and it will take you to a cite report, which I showed earlier, these cite reports. And in the cite report, what you can do is you can read everything that's been said about this paper. And so if you want to know whether or not you're citing this paper appropriately, you can you can read these and you can search for keywords or paper and filter by paper sections or citation types and so on. And you can see whether or not you're making an appropriate citation. And indeed, many of these citations, I've just put them in the slide here, all cite this paper for the exact same reason. So with cite, you can easily see that many authors cite the work for the same reason that you've searched for. And that way you can know whether this is an appropriate citation. And so now that you've kind of seen how you can use cite to find a citation and understand if it's an appropriate citation, what about independent support? What about, because oftentimes when you want to cite something, you want to be sure that publication's of a high quality. And one of the ways of understanding whether a publication is of high quality is to understand if it's been independently supported or replicated. And so you can do that in cite as well. You can, and I'm just using the same paper as an example. You can look at the this one has 34 supporting citations. So I can just click here and filter to just the supporting citations. And I can read the supporting citations. And sometimes the supporting citations only replicate one result in a paper. Sometimes it's the entire paper. Sometimes it's different partial claims. I can read these supporting citations and get an idea of how it's been supported. And so here is just me doing a summary of these supporting studies here. And so I can write a sentence, something like, this has been seen in many subsequent studies showing the same result. And so I just, these two particular papers have had in-text citations where they're saying, from here, they're saying that they have found the exact same result as Tenney 2019. And so what about, and so that's kind of like an interesting thing, especially in our times as scholars where replication and independent support is a very important factor in how you should be looking at literature and how you should be doing your own literature. That's finding supporting citations is a really big part of what we try to make easy at Cite. And if you think about back when I was talking about this story of looking at all the 1,000 citations, opening them all up, seeing which one's been supported or not, it is really hard and a lot of time that it would take to do that yourself. So that's what we try to make easy with Cite. So what about critical discussion and debate? Well, this is another citation from that report here, from this report. And I kind of just searched the keyword however. And so I just found this citation that is actually a contrasting citation. And what it's saying, it's providing criticism actually of this paper. And what it's saying is that actually the evidence that these BERT models are able to successfully perform tasks with respect to high level semantic capacities is inconclusive. And what they're explaining is that this particular paper uses this prop bank data set, which actually is more closely tied to syntax or syntactical semantics or lexicosemantics rather than higher order sort of logical based semantics. And so this paper is like a really important nuance on the claims we should be saying. So instead, and so, yeah, I can add that to the paper. I can add, however, these authors remind us that we should be careful about what is meant by citation, by semantic information, as the semantic tasks will need to demonstrate proficiency with prop bank. And I could have actually so I could have actually modified the first sentence to say, instead of encoding semantic information, encoding lower level semantic information. So now I'm using cite to sort of understand how the literature is evolving and getting more nuanced, getting more critical. And so you can repeat that, and you can just, look through these reports and understand what's being talked about. And papers, of course, always stand for a set of results or a set of arguments. And so you can sort of use this to not only understand what's being said about a paper, but you're understanding what's being said about a topic of interest and research. So oftentimes, like this particular paper, oftentimes in my discipline stands in for our kind of notions of these BERT or transformer models and generalization that they're able to do. And so if I'm reading these 300 citation statements, I can start to get like a picture of the discussion that's happening about generalization in natural language processing for these models. And so I'm kind of interested in, okay, well, here's another task. I know how to use cite for finding a citation. I know how to use cite for looking for supporting information and critical information, but what about similar citations or other prior art? Oftentimes, scholars have this experience when they submit a manuscript for review where peer reviewers will say something like, well, you didn't cite this other paper, or you're missing citations, and so on. How does cite help with that? Well, one thing you can do is the other citations that appear together. So here's another paper that appears with TENI 2019. It's Jawahar 2019. You can see that they're both cited together for the same claim. You can see, it's kind of hard to see because it's cut off, but the third result also, it doesn't cite TENI, but it cites this Jawahar 2019 for a similar reason. And so you can see that actually Jawahar might actually also be a prior art, and it says 2019. So maybe they are both relevant at the same time for this claim. Similarly, this Peters et al. 2019 might also be interesting, or this Hewitt and Manning 2019 might also be interesting for the same claim. So now you have 4 papers to explore to see whether or not you should be citing them, and so on. And so instead of going through all 4, I'll just go through Jawahar 2019. Oh, I didn't sort of open the report in this, but what you can do is you can open the report and you can read through the citations just like we've done for TENI 2019, and you can see that whether or not people also cite it the same way, and whether it's a prior art or a similar citation, so on. And so here, I've just amended this this little paragraph that we've been writing with Jawahar 2019. And I just say repeat here, because really the process of writing and doing research with cite, the core use case that people use for cite is this process of finding citations for statements they've made, or claims, or things that need citations, and then digging deeper into the critical discussion and nuance about those publications, or in other words, the quality information about the claim. So looking at supporting studies, contrasting studies, similar studies, and so on. And so, I did put this Jawahar. I thought I did. Okay, so yeah, then here's the paper. And again, here's what I can do is, instead of uncritically citing Jawahar 2019 here, I can use the same procedure for understanding, like, is there anything critical about this paper? And I can see here this examining the rhetorical capacities of neural language models. I can actually see something very interesting, which is that this paper also looked at discourse information for this publication. or for the results in this publication. And so I hope this doesn't go too much over your heads, but it's very interesting because what it's saying is that these BERT models might not necessarily encode discursive information, which is sort of long, information about long texts and how we speak to one another. So, maybe these BERT models aren't so good and they don't have good rhetorical capacities, so maybe that's another critical thing that I can add back to my paragraph here. And maybe, and this is another sort of use case that we try to encourage people to use, maybe this is an opening in the gap in literature for me to sort of start to investigate a study of my own. So oftentimes when we're working with graduate students, or scholars looking for a literature review or critical analysis or to find gaps in literature, this is a perfect example of finding gaps in literature where rhetorical capacities of natural language models are poor, and it can sort of spur you on to do studies and work in that area. I'm just going to show a little bit about some of our other products now. So what you can do with and this is just our advanced search, what you can do is you can search a topic. So here I have this topic, interesting to me, masked language modeling, and I can order the results by most supported to see which papers that are talking about masked language modeling have supporting citations. So this one has 5. With 1 contrasting citation, this one has 3. And to me, those are the papers I'm going to look at first because those are the ones that potentially have independent replications. And so if I want to sort of design a method for masked language modeling, I'm going to want to use these ones rather than ones that only have contrasts or, have no supporting citations. And again, I can sort of order by contrast, and I can look for kind of debates or critical information. And so I just search natural language understanding and order by contrasted in our search, and I can see, this paper, it's interesting. There's definitely going to be some sort of debate or critical discussion here, as there's 3 supporting citations, 3 critical contrasting citations. So that's like a really good place to start off with when you're writing and doing research, because then you can kind of have this balanced or nuanced understanding of the literature. And all of that to be said is a way of helping you as a scholar really to write and do research better by having access to these tools that surface kind of interesting citations. So really the summary of what Cite does for you is surface interesting discussions about topics. And this is all the things that I've shown is kind of how we do that through citation types and in-text citations and so on. And like I said, we have an extension that works in the browser, and it's free, and you can get in. Here's the paper that I was talking about before. And, I use it all the time because it's interesting, right? I have access to this citation information right beside any paper I'm reading online. And we do, I'm sort of out of time, but I don't know if I have extended time for questions, but we do have, these other features, visualizations, Zotero plugin, author pages, dashboards, reference checks, and so on, and sort of these other use cases that, are designed around even other sort of use cases for evaluating research as a peer reviewer, or evaluating institutional research outputs and so on. But I sort of didn't go into them today. But if you have any other questions, or if you have any questions about those particular, feel free to let us know. And how to get help or get started, you can really email us at hi@cite.ai, or you can email me, dom@cite.ai. We have live chat and some help material. The extension is free. You can sign up for a free 7-day trial if you like, or ask your organization to purchase a license. And one thing that I did want to emphasize, and this is the last thing I'll say before I take questions, is if you are a bibliometrician, or you're interested in the philosophy of science, or you're interested in doing any kind of analysis of scientific text, and you'd like to use our data for research purposes, we'd love to work with you and help you in any way we can. We make our data available to researchers. We do have some restrictions with our publishing agreements, but if you'd like to, just contact us with what you're interested in doing with our data, and we'd be happy to get you started. And so I'm happy to take any questions if anybody has any. Oh, I can't hear you.
I lose myself. Yeah.
Oh, I thought I was.
Okay, yes. Thank you, Tom. I think that's quite a lot of information, and I think everyone is trying to digest the information.
Yeah.
Right. But before we receive any questions from the audience, probably because I myself would interested to know, because to my understanding, Cite is actually quite a new release. It is born in 2021, last year, or?
So actually Cite is as old. So the Cite project, the initial kind of project was started in 2015. The Cite, but it was sort of a different, and it was the R factor, and it was designed around replicability. So like under index for showing whether or not a paper has been replicated, and it sort of evolved since then. We've had this kind of version of a Cite product for supporting contrasting and mentioning, like what I've shown since 2018. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But I think, yeah, it's really been 2021 that we've really grown is really what it is. Yeah.
Yes, so, yeah. Yeah, that's what I think, because last year when we see Cite is the news of Cite is now showing everywhere. For example, like you cooperate with publishers on getting their data index, etc. So I think the news are really spread out last year. So I believe that your user base is actually growing fast last year. So
yeah, just to illustrate, these things take time. And,
yeah, sure. So I don't know if you have some any idea, for example, all the users right now for Cite, what kind of, because you do share, there are several applications that the researchers might be benefit from using the data, the citation data in Cite. So would you like to share which are the most used or most well-received applications from your users?
In terms of like how people are using Cite? The day-to-day usage of Cite is usually through the extension. So a lot of people use the extension every day. The second thing is probably just looking at the reports as a result of clicking the extension. And then the third thing would be kind of the more in-depth search tool, and what we found about academics working is that like this often occurs in bursts. So, a lot of people are reading and looking at literature often, but people aren't sort of in-depth analyzing, discussions about literature until they're writing or preparing for a grant or preparing for, setting up experiments and so on. So that kind of happens more sporadically. And then the rest of our products, again, are even more sporadic. So reference check, for example, happens a lot often when someone's finished a manuscript to review the reference, or they're peer reviewing something. Is that what you were getting after in your question?
Yeah, I think that would answer my question. For me, because myself, although I'm not a researcher, but the browser extension is also the starting point for me, because whenever or wherever I go to any search engine like Google Scholar or any e-journal databases, I can always see the article that I opened, receive, how many supporting and mentioning and contrasting citations. And that would raise my interest if I see anything that is particularly, different from others.
Right. And now we show, one thing, and that's why we find it important to make that free and openly available. But we show, importantly, we show retraction information on there. So, oftentimes journals are not very good about showing that a paper has been retracted or withdrawn or has corrections and so on. So we make a point of showing that on the extension as well.
Right. And Jesse did ask another question, asking if site provides API services.
So we do. We have a public API, and I'll get a link to it and put it in here if you're interested. And our public API kind of exposes information about the metadata, the tallies, which is kind of the counts of citations. There's a bunch of other things in there, and so on. Our public API doesn't expose these. It doesn't expose these citation texts, the in-text citation mentions. And the reason for that is like I mentioned when talking about using Cite for doing research on scientific text, our indexing agreements we sign with publishers sometimes can be restrictive. So one of the things we can't do is provide those through an API unless there's like specific restrictions and so on. So we do have customers and researchers who use that private API, but all they need to do is just talk to us about like what their use case is, and we kind of just work with them on what the constraints our publisher partners have.
Right. So API generally, who are using it? The research institutions or publishers? Can you give us some examples?
It's kind of all over the place. For researchers, typically there are a few researchers who build their own tools for whatever reason, and they use like Cite, and so that's kind of one small one. Our API is pretty heavily used by bibliometricians, so people who are studying science itself and research itself use our API a lot and use our private API or work with us on data exchange quite a bit. Publishers do use our API. We're in a few ways. Some of them, like Wiley I showed, they embed their own site information on their articles, and so they use the API for that. Other publishers have their own submission systems where they use site data for when you submit a manuscript. It might look at your references and show how your reference, particularly if your references have been retracted, but if it's been heavily disputed and so on, they'll be flagged and stuff. So yeah, we work with Manuscript Manager, Aries, and another one, but yeah, that's kind of their use case. And then I think that's probably the main API one. So people who build their own tools, then bibliometricians, and then sort of publishers. Yeah, there are a few research tools that we have integrations with beyond just them embedding the badge. So some of them use our search to retrieve results. Yeah.
Right. So I guess we can see the site or the application of the data insights is actually being used by many different purposes and in different applications used by no matter it's bibliometricians or researchers or libraries or even publishers.
Yeah. I can only think there are, for libraries specifically, I think the only case I'm aware of maybe is institutional repositories. But I think most of what I've seen is people using the badge in institutional repositories. But all that to be said, it's kind of like all of this has a history, right? And so Web of Science and Scopus they have a long history of doing this. And so they did this with citations. And so we similarly, like, and a lot of infrastructure is built on them, as what we're trying to provide is sort of a next generation infrastructure to be built on, these citation types for more nuanced information about citations.
Right. So actually, Jesse, the librarian at Hong Kong University, is actually having the second session with us, and he will be share more about the application and the Hong Kong University's experiences in adopting sites. So I will looking forward for his sharing, because I now see there are actually quite potentials in using site, not only at the researcher site, but also at the institutional site. So I don't see any other questions in our Q&A toolbar at this moment. So, but of course, any questions that you have, or our audience have, can actually bring it up later, or you can email to us later, because Dom is actually, it's very late for Dom. So I think for any questions, we are happy to answer it offline. But Dom, you are always welcome to stay with us whenever you can. Thank you again, Dominic. So now let's welcome our speaker for the section, for the second section, Jesse Xiao. And Jesse is actually the Data and Scholarly Communication Librarian at the University of Hong Kong. And he will share Hong Kong University's experiences in adopting sites in his institution. Welcome, Jesse.
Okay, I share my screen. So, can you see my screen now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So good morning, everyone. So I'm Jesse from HKU Library. So thanks to invite me to present in this webinar, and I will show my experience about a site with the topic discover and evaluate scientific articles through a site. So, so the scientific publication number get rapidly increasing in recent 20 years. So with also with the OA publication trend, and we have nowadays we have more than 3 million publications, and it will get more and more. So we will bring up the issues how to quickly discover and evaluate from the large amount of articles to start the literature review. So I personally start to use SI from last year, and our library also start to subscribe the SI from last year. And here I will show my personal experience about how to use SI and our library, how to use SI to help the academic researchers from library point of view. So the first features of the SI will be to understand research article beyond the citation count. So to understand the purpose of citation made in a paper, so researchers may still have to manually skim through each paper and go to check relevant in-text citations, etc. So going beyond a count of total citation, so a site is introducing a smart citation index that attempts to surface a purpose of citations. So it allows user to see where and how a publication has been cited by providing the context of citation and classification describing whether it provides support or contrasting evidence for cited claims. So as Dom introduced before, so the site web browser extension is very useful. So you can install the site browser extension, and then the site badge will show in your web browser to display total citations, publications, number of supporting, mentioning, contrasting, and also if the paper has been retracted, so it will also have the warning message. So here is the example in our institutional repository Scholars Hub. So this highly cited paper in our Scholars Hub, if you install the the site browser extensions, you will see more detail about the citations. So I may further introduce our Scholars Hub. So the HKU Scholars Hub is current information system of the University of Hong Kong. So it aims to enhance the visibility of HKU authors and their researchers to foster opportunities for collaborations. So the hub collect, preserve, and disseminate the digital forms and the intellectual output of HKU. So it also provides the open access to the items, so including the HKU thesis, the preprint and postprint for Hong Kong U publications. So the new Scholar Hub, so we are developing the new Scholars Hub. So in the new Scholars Hub, the homepage will better show Hong Kong U research impact, so including the trending publication, like the latest hot and highly cited paper, and also the highly cited scholars, etc. So in the researcher profile page, we will also collect and display the bibliometric data from different databases to show the scholars' research impact. So that is why I asked Dong whether SI provide API. So probably we can use the API to collect both data to provide the bibliometric and the research impact services to our university. So in the publication record page, so we have the rich metadata information for each record and provide the research metric badge here. So if you see the research metric badge here, so you will see so we not only provide the traditional citations such as Web of Science School, PubMed, so we also provide the essay badge, so which embedded in our new Scholars Hub for every publications. So when you read the articles in the journal website, so you can use the site browser extensions, and then you can click the badge, so it will redirect you to the site publication page. So in this page, you can further check the citation details by filter different citation types, so which is very useful. So, and the second feature is performance reference checking. So we can check if any reference in the document has been disputed or rejected. So in this example, so you will see the article has 20 reference publications, and you can see the details for each reference, and some reference has the erratum and or comment from the publisher. So you can see the different tag here. And also if the reference has been has collection or restricted, so it will also show in the reference publication list. So this is very important. So SI also run a reference check by uploading a PDF or Word document. So which is very useful for our student and the young researcher when they prepare submit the manuscript, or when they read the preprint, so they can do the reference check first. So it's very easy, just upload the PDF or Microsoft Word document. So here I just screenshot the steps, so it's very easy to get the result. So just upload it, and then you can quickly see the result. So in my example, you will find the 19 reference detected, and I have 0 reference with editorial concern, so which is important. So another feature is create the custom dashboard, so which is we use it quite often. So it can evaluate how a customer group of article has been cited and better evaluate the research topic and fields. So you can import data from your Zotero or Manipulate library, or you can just provide the list of DOI. So after you, in this example, I just provide a list of DOI and put the name and description, and then SI will create the group. It says the biomedical group here with the citation type and the editorial notice, total article information. So it will like the summary information for my Zotero or Mendeley library. It's like quickly provide the summary information. And also I can see all the researchers in my library. So you can see a list of researcher names. And if you want to see the researcher profile in SI, you can click the name and then we will jump to the researcher profile page. And also in the publications list, so you can quickly sort by the supporting number, contrasting number, and the mention number to quickly find the probably best suitable publication for you. So you can quickly find it. Okay, so this part is quite Zotero's SI plugin is quite useful. So I use it every day actually. So when I use the Zotero, so you can download the Zotero SI plugin from I think from the SI website or from the GitHub. I can't remember. So it's very easy to install in the Zotero. And then after that, so every publications in your Zotero library will show the SI citations, such as number of supporting, contrasting, mentioning, etc. And also for each publication record, they have the individual SI windows to see the detail. So another useful information for SI is they have already integrated with a lot of journals, so such as the PLOS ONE and the eLife. So and then you can quickly find the SI information in the journal web page. So without install the web browser extension, so you can directly see the SI citations in the journal website. And also another feature is identify key argument in a topic. So it's like you can search the topic in the SI website, and then you can sort by the supporting number and the contrasted number, the mention number quickly to find the articles. So for the last feature in my presentation is the affiliation list. So it will allow the university administrator or library to better understand our university research performance in the SI affiliation profile page. So all of the until now the university profile page still not collect our HKU full publication list, but it still was to get to see our university research performance in the SI university profile page. Yeah, so this is our university profile page. So I just screen capture from the SI website. Yeah, so we can quickly see the total number of supporting and mentioning and contrasting number from the HKU publication, and also have the summary of the editorial notice here. And then SI also provide the SI index, so which is a new index for us. So probably we can further study this index and include it in our bibliometric and the research impact services in future. Yeah. So I think that's all for my presentation. So I'm happy to take questions. Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Jesse. I think you actually presented sites in the more user's point of view.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this
Like,
is
sorry?
this is our library's role to educate or provide the new services to the university scholars or students to use the site. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the introduction of the plugin, the plugin of Zotero to site seems quite useful, especially for those who manage a huge collection of documents and also using site or these information for their literature review.
Yeah. So I think the Zotero plugin is very useful because you don't need install any other things. So everything you imported in your Zotero library, you can see the citations from website. So it's very convenient. Yeah.
Right. And okay, so okay, because I'm actually in the same room with Han-Wen, so I think Han-Wen is now preparing for her slide. So Jesse, right now we don't have any questions, but do you mind staying until our Q&A session later after Han-Wen's presentation? Yeah, because in the agenda we actually do have a Q&A session, but because Don is actually, his time zone is not very convenient, so we just, having his Q&A earlier. So now, thank you, Jesse, again. Please stay, and thank you again for the wonderful sharings. Now, our last speaker, Dr. Han-Wen Chung, is our very own data consultant from the IES research team, and she is going to share how data at site could be utilized beyond the usual citation relationship and literature review. So Han-Wen, over to you.
Thanks, Iris. Actually, I'm just going to ask a question to Jesse, whether I think I can hold it back to know later. Yeah, thank you, Jesse and Iris. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much to join this for joining these sessions. My name is Han-Wen Zhang, and my presentation topic. Oh, sorry, I have to share my screen first. Can you see my screen? Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, my topic is to go beyond citation counts using sites. And after listening to Don and Jess' presentations, I'm even more quite exciting about seeing the sites. But because I actually as an analyst working in bibliometrics business and research for decades, I think I'm after looking at the features inside, I'm really looking forward to see the applications beyond the citation counts. And in my presentations, I'm going to share some of my thoughts and observations in this topic. So I studied, my major is library science, so I would like to share starting from the theoretical perspectives in the information retrieval. So I think in the previous studies, we can find that there are 4 milestones that can be defined in when we want to evaluate the so-called relevance in information retrieval. So when we want to evaluate a system, whether or not if the system can retrieve the so-called relevant informations, actually there are some researchers already suggest some the theory regarding this topic. So the first one is topic relevance. I think it's a very thought about the relevance. It's very straightforward. Because I mean, when we talk about the topic of relevance, it means that if the systems can retrieve the content that can meet the terms in the user's search queries, so we can say that it is successfully, I mean, retrieve the relevant information from the system. So this definition is provided by the Crodra and Cater studies in 1967. So it's a very early concept about the relevance. And then in 1971, the researchers Cooper provided the other thought about the relevance. So the second concept is the logic relevance. So what is the logic relevance? So this kind of relevance emphasizes that a system should identify the information not only with the matched term, but also with the inductive logic. So for example, if a user looking for materials about the Western Europe, we said, take that as an example, and the user can get information not only about the information for the overall region, but also can retrieve the information about the countries in this region, like Europe, like United Kingdom, France, Ireland, and so on. So the idea was actually focused on not only just the terms, the match term, but also some like logical relationship between the terms. And the third concept about the relevance is the situational relevance, and that was introduced by Wilson in 1973. So Wilson was inspired by the previous studies, but also I mean, he thought that it's very important to think about the users, the personal stock of knowledge and a set of personal concerns. So this means that even with the same queries to throw in the systems, the different users might have different adjustment in the reference of the information because their experiences and knowledge status may be different. So with that concept, that when we talk about the information retrieval or the how to evaluate the relevance of information, when we need to think about the personal situations as better for users. And the final one is physiological relevance. And this was proposed by Harter in 1992. So that is more relevant to the topic that we will talk about today, because Harter used the theoretical framework of the previous study to interpret the so-called psychological reference. So what is that? So according to Harter, so reading, he said that if reader reading a new bibliographic citations, so it can cause the user to create a new context. So this means that a set of cognitive change would take place in that context. So that means that retrieve the citation could be the relevant to a user. So if they found that bring them the new knowledge, so it means that the knowledge status in their mind is changed. So that's why they think that the citation is the best resource to identify the relevant information regarding the information retrieval. So why we need to talk about this point? Because even though we already believe that the citation is a good resources to researchers to explore the new knowledge, with the limitation of the the tool of the database, when we still for a long time, we still people still often relied on the number of citation or times cited as indicators to measure the relevance or the impact of the previous study. So we can say that in a conventional way, all citing articles are thought to be related to the previous work equally, because it is hard to know how each article has cited the work. So like the diagram shown in here, article A, B, and C all count for 1 time cited and were equally related to the previous work, as people thought. But if we look at each of them to understand how the article P was cited in the present work, we can find that there's some differences among them. So like article A cites article P 1 time in 1 session, while the article C, article B cite article P 2 times in the same session. And there may be other situations like article C, it cites article P more than 1 time in more session. So maybe we can take a look at the example here. So there are the articles written by the Nobel Prize winner, Dr. Sukuro Manabe in 1975. We found that there are 3 articles citing his work. Of course, there's more than 3 articles, but we just take this as example. So at first, we can see the article A cited his work 1 time in introduction. And the second one, the article B also cited in introduction, besides it have the 2 citation mentioning citation statements in data citing papers. And also the next example, we can see that there's another article that is citing the also Dr. Manabe's research, but in the different sessions. So we can see that this is a difference, kind of a different behaviors among these 3 the 3 citing articles. So it's not difficult to lead a conclusion that all the 3 citing articles, although they only cite once, but actually they are different. So the relevance of these 3 articles to the previous work are different. So to make it simple, as a citing articles, if the citing article puts a multiple citation statement in the multiple sections, it should be regarded as a high relevant articles to the previous work. And the previous work has high impact on the citing articles. So this is why we suggest to identify the relevant articles by so-called contextual citations, which means we need to consider the how the work has been cited in the citing articles. So here I try to use two factors that we can take consideration when we want to evaluate the relevance of articles. So one is a source. It's referring to where the citation statements appear in the citing article. And another is the number of citation statements in the citing articles. So for the first factors, we can identify three types of reference based on where the citation occurs. So like what was shown in this slide. So if articles was cited in introduction or background of the citing articles, we believe that most of these literatures share the same topics or objectives in research. So we can call it topic relevance. And if the articles cited the previous articles in the section of like experiment or methodologies, it got inspired from how the previous work can be applied in present study. So we can call it as application relevance. The third one, I say if the articles was cited in the results or discussions of the citing article, so if evidential relevance was observed, and we can name it as the impact relevance. So there are the three types of relevance we can identify according to the source. And another factor is the number of citation statements. I try to use some quantitative information, apply some quantitative information here. So I think it's very straightforward to measure the degree of the relevance by the number of the citation statements. That means if the article received more times, if the articles cited more times to the previous work, is higher than the relevance to the present studies. So it's measured by the number of the citation statements. So maybe we can take an example here. So we also use the Dr. Wanabe's publication as an example. Like here, we know that one of his classic work is the one that is published in 1967. So this publication has been cited more than 1,000 times and come up with more than 700 citation statements that can be identified by site. So using site, we can easily identify the next three types of relevance. The first one is topic relevance. You can look at the reference in the introduction. And the second one is application relevance. That is, we can look at the citation statements in methodologies. And the third one is impact relevance, which is focused on the results and the discussion session of the citing articles. So we can look at a more example here. So you can see that if we apply the concept that we just mentioned now, for the first one, the topic relevance, the article A here, they mention once in introductions. But another articles, the article B, there's the article B actually referred to the previous work multiple times in introduction only. So we can easily to see that how the difference between these two articles regarding the relevance to the previous work. And the second example is for the application relevance. So this also applied the similar concept that we mentioned just now, but the only things that I need to highlight here is in most cases, an article would not be frequently cited by present study in its methodology. So among the case I look at is not usually they just cite once in the methodology. I think it's unless that the article is about the methodology. If the article is focused on the methodology, I think they might be cited multiple times. But if they are just the regular, the original research, they probably just like cite once. But I still find another example here to show that it is still possible that the article are cited multiple times in the session of methodologies in the citing articles here. And this is another example about to show the impact relevance. As you can see that both the articles refer to Dr. Wanabe's work in Resolve, and the article B mentions his work twice in his Resolve, and the first article, the article A, just mentioned once. So you can see the relevance is the big difference here. Yeah, I think that is more like for the discovery here. I would also like to share the other thought about the how we can look at the data, the insight. So this is another application that we can also use the contextual citations. So we can see that from according to Don's and Jesse's presentations, we can actually identify the supporting supporting citation statement and the contrasting statement. So I try to use this concept to identify so-called the same or the different sort of the school of thought. So we know that any scientific finding is to go through a series explanations and discussions between come up with a great theory. So during the process, researchers can have may have a different thought or the same thought of same thought about the topic, right? So and some of them might be between. So I think that might give us some sense about that how we can think about the citation data regarding to this kind of concept. So I think this is also I want to use the Dr. Wanabe's example here. So we can also use the site to identify the school of thought by the citation type. So we can say that if a citing article cited the previous work with a supporting statement, these two articles, citing and cited articles, can be regarded as the same school of thoughts. And if a citing article cited the previous work with a contrasting statement, these two articles might not be in the same school of thought, might have some room to debate or discuss to each other. And for some cases, if the article cited the previous work with both the supporting and the contrasting statements, we can say maybe the kind of research or the colleagues are in between. It's not either have the same school of thought with you, but it's not the other way. Okay, so we kind of can use this this kind of concept to identify whether or not they're kind of a similar thought in a research topic. Yeah. So I also try to find some examples by using sites here. So in this case, Dr. Wanabe's study was supported by other newer works. So in the statement, they show you can see this work, the present work is consistent with the previous finding. So they kind of a similar finding in this research. So, and also we can also drill down to the other literature that might not directly refer to Dr. Wanabe's publication, but have similar finding to the article that has cited Dr. Wanabe's work earlier. So we can find a kind of a serious research that have the similar findings regarding the point of view. And this is another example to show that how we also can use the data to identify the different school of thought. So in this example, the newer publications does not, fully agree the previous work. So that can be lead to different conclusions from the original work of Dr. Wanabe. So, and also this publication also cited by the other publication, the newer one, that also agree his point. So we can say that we can also try to find the different school of thought regarding to this research topic. And of course, there's examples for the between. There are some, researchers, they may have similar finding in some ways with the previous work, but not all of them. They can also have the other, like a contrasting statement about that work. So this kind of like between. And also, I think it's also good to know that we don't need to really go through all the detail, like click one by one, but use the tool provided by the site to see the overall picture of this kind of citation statement. So by using these handy tools, we can just push a button and to generate a visual map of the work for the to include the various citation type. So we can see who has fully supporting your research and who has contrasting statement, and who else can have the both citation statement to the previous work. And the final application that I would like to explore is to use the data to do the outreach. So based on the contextual citation that I mentioned about how to identify the high relevant information, and to identify whether or not the readers or the audience is in the same school of thought to you. So we can look at who are these readers, and by looking at the data. So here I use another topic or another example here. So this article is about COVID-19 in 2021. So it's a very new topic here. So we know that COVID-19 is very important topic, and thousands of articles has been published in this area. So the population of the research is very large. So in such a big and new topic, how we can find the colleagues that is highly relevant to your research and also share the similar school of thought with us. So maybe we can also apply using the site and apply the concept I mentioned just now to identify the right or the focus audience of our research topics here. So we can find that, for example, here, this article is written by a group of researchers in China. So if we look at who has cited this work, we can see that this work, this citing work published by a group of researchers in Italy has been heavily cited the previous work in their literatures. So we can show that the work by the researchers in China has a great impact on the present work, the newer work that is published by researchers from Italy. So I mean, from that relationship, we can identify the audience that is truly and heavily interested and understand your work. So that could be the right audience for you if you want to expand your work or to do the outreach. Maybe they can be the potential a collaborator in your work in the future. So that is also an example about how we can use the information here, can leverage on the concept of the contextual citation here to do more work, not only for discovery, but also for the research outreach, to engage with the professional network in academia. So this is summary. I mean, by using the contextual citation, by using the data, so we can discover the high relevant information, of course, that I mentioned, and also we can identify the same or different school of thought, so can find the other literature that have the same finding or the similar thought with you, and also focus on the right audience. And we want to do the research outreach. Yeah, I think that is pretty much it I want to share today for this session. So thank you very much. Please let me know if you have any comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Hanwen. I think the information that you just shared is very, very informative, with a lot of data and a lot of hard work. I really appreciate that. And also I feel very interesting that such citation data analysis can also be used not only in the bibliometric research field, but also the information can be used in the research outreach. So I wonder, do you have any experiences or any more insight on the any actual case that you use such information for research outreach?
Yeah, thank you. Well, yes, actually, we are applying this kind of concept to the project where we are working for the research outreach. I think CITE is a very new tool for most of us. And when we look at the tools, we are very excited to apply that to try it in the different applications. So yes, I would say that we have starting to use it to apply it to to our projects in research outreach. of course, it's still like in a very beginning status. So we are still looking at the data that we received from the work that we have been done. But I think one thing that we need to notice is that usually we want to, usually that when we work on the research outreach projects, most of the literature is quite new, which means that they do not receive many citations yet. So it's very important to leverage on any citation they have received, maybe just few, but this is important to leverage on the citations to promote the work. Yeah.
Right, thank you. Again, any questions? Please feel free to share with us in the Q&A toolbar or the chat box so that we can share and let our speakers share more thoughts with us.
So maybe I can ask my question to Jess. All right. So Jess, I think you share your experience about how a librarian can use the the tool for the projects in the library. So just wondering, I think you probably already started introduce this tool to researchers. So I just wondering if you can share any feedback from the researchers, according to your experiences.
Yeah, so because we just start to subscribe early last year, so we still not collect the feedback, but from the webinar host in HKU, so the feedback is good, but we still not formally collect the feedback about the usage. Yeah. But from your presentation, because we are also doing the bibliometry and the research impact project, so which provide the research performance report to the university senior management. So the larger part of this report is about the citations. So I see your presentations provide another ideas like your citation in the different session means the topic, application, or collaborations, for example, like that. So, but I think it's very good to use the STAT, but the only question is because they do not get the full text for every publication. So only a small part of publication can get the full text, and then STAT can go the full text scanning and analysis. So I just wonder if we use this your method to do the analysis and provide the report. I just wondering the report how can I say? So the report can correctly present the research performance or no?
Sorry, I just couldn't find my mute button. Yeah. Thank you for the question. Yeah. I think it's true that because they do not, site do not collect all the full text. So I think we need to be aware of that limitation or the the status. But I think that it's still no harm to apply this concept, especially if we want to identify the relevance between individual articles. So means that one article, it could have a topical relevance in another topics, in another articles, but it also can have the different relevance relationship like applications or impact relevance to the other citing articles. Which that means that I think the one article can have the different type of relationship or relevance to the other work. So I think we can still use the this concept, probably not suitable to institutions to make a conclusion, but I think we can still find some interesting, point from this kind of relationship, especially for like individual ones.
Yes, so probably we will plan to use the API to see if we can do the analysis for all the HKU publications in a site. Yeah.
Right, true. Yeah. Thank you.
Site, for me, actually, the reason why I asked Dong just now when he was here is that the history of site is actually relatively young compared to, let's say, citation index like Web of Science or Scopus, even Google Scholar. However, the information and also the data analysis that site provided is a step further compared to those traditional citation index. Of course, I think the progress of site is not that mature as Web of Science or Scopus, because they have been in the market and working with the publishers for decades. But I guess I can foresee that in the future, if site is receiving good feedback from researchers as well as publishers, probably they will get more information in the future. I don't know if Han-Wen or Jessie would agree on that, but of course, I think all those data analysis, if you don't have enough data, then it is very hard to get a correct answer. However, it shows an indicator, right, Han-Wen?
Right, I would say that I think with this kind of a contextual information about the citations, there's so many possibilities to use it. And I would say that, of course, people love indicators. If you can use just simple numbers, you can just, life is more easier, right? So, but I would say that with the, it's a complex work. I mean, I would say that I believe that people will still, work on the indicators that can use these kind of informations, but we still need to be aware of that there's so many information that we cannot just use one simple word to tell the whole story. So, for example, that people love to use this just like a number of citations, but we know that there's limitations. It's not enough to just use the citations. And now we have the more information about the citations. So how we can use it and how we can come up with more sophisticated indicators for that, I think is important work to do for our next steps. Yeah.
Speaking of indicators, since Han-Wen you mentioned, at Jess's sharing just now, I saw that in Hong Kong University Scholar Hub, you do in each articles, you do have indicators such as the number of citations, Plan X or metrics, as well as the site information by the site of the articles. So Jessie, I wonder, with so many indicators for one articles, of course, you also have to report to the management on the performance of the overall picture of the Hong Kong U scholars. So when you talk to the managers, how do you present those indicators, and how do you communicate to the managements, with all those different indicators? Yeah.
So yes, this is a good question. But currently we are still developing these services, but right now we provide the different data source, like the report have the different source. Like if you want to see the Caribbean data source, we have the Caribbean data source report, and then probably Elsevier data source report. We have different data source report for the senior management. Yeah.
Right, and with all the different sources, will you present the different meanings behind it, and do the management understand the meaning behind
so
it?
we will do the data visualization to visualize the data to let them can quickly find the answers. Yeah, and then we have some description under each field. Yeah.
Right, I think data visualization is actually a very good presentation way for people who is not in the field can understand the citation picture better, right?
Yes, yes. And also I have one question is the SI is only can analyze the full text for open access publication or open access article. So it's only analysis the full text for the open access articles, right? Or they can analysis not just OA articles.
If Don is here, I think he can answer better. But however, as my understanding is that they work with publishers to get the full text. So, for example, if they one of the publisher they work is Wiley, for example, I don't exactly remember the list of publishers, but of course we can find it on their website. So they work with, let's say, Wiley, and then they get the full text directly from Wiley's.
Okay, so
regardless is open access or not.
Okay, okay, it makes sense. But it's from my point of view, I can see currently the SI is like the focus on some subject. So in some subject you can find a lot of publication, but in another for example, in the medical or biomedical area, you can find a lot of publication in the SI. But for example, in other subjects, probably you cannot find a lot of articles in the SI.
Right. I think that is the approach they're working on. So as John mentioned earlier in his before his presentation, he said that because there are not every subject disciplines they have good coverage with. So if there is any subject area that the users think that they should put more attention to, they welcome any suggestions.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah.
Okay, good. Any more questions between the speakers and also from the audience? I just saw one audience who raised his hand, but unfortunately he dropped it now. But if you do have any questions or you do have any thoughts you would like to share with our speakers, please feel free to do so. Oh, actually, I do have one question. It's not actually a question, but it's more like asking our speakers' opinion. So with all the data and with all the information that we see today regarding Cite and their data, so the question first, I think I would like to ask Hanwen, do you think that Cite will bring changes to the existing citation indexes?
Well, to be honest, I hope there will be one day coming soon. I mean, I know there's still hard to move the status of how people look or use like the number of citations in Web of Science or Scopus. But I do hope that more people to see the power of the site and to know how this tool can have various applications in there, not only for the researchers' work, for libraries service, but also for the publishers. So yeah, I do looking forward to see the more successful case about using sites.
Right. Jesse, may I ask your opinion about this?
Yes, so for my point of view, it's very useful to get the in-depth insights for the citations without just provide the total citation number is very useful. But probably it also may be very difficult to negotiate with each publisher to provide the full text. So from our library point of view, so probably if SI can collect as many as publishers as possible, so then we can we can use the SI to generate more useful report in future. Yes.
Thank you. Right, now we are approaching to the end of our webinars. So any questions? This is your last chance. Otherwise, okay, I will wait for 10 seconds. Okay, but anyway, any questions, you can bring it offline, email to us, and you can have the webinar recordings, of course. So you're free to share with your colleagues as well, so that you know for more thoughts. So once again, thanks to all our speakers for the informative and fruitful sharing. And due to the interest of time, I guess we have to end the webinar session. But if, again, any questions, let us know. Thank you for your time and participation. We wish you have a good day, and please stay safe and healthy. Thank you.